Today, we bring to you a talk show discussing the tenets and the imperatives of what is happening today in the country towards realizing a scalable, competitive, and sustainable mobility industry value chain in Uganda, producing over 500,000 vehicles with 65% localization by 2030. This show is brought to you by the Secretariat of Science, Technology and Innovation in the Office of the President through the leadership of Honorable Dr. Monica Msenero in partnership with Private Sector Foundation and Uganda Broadcasting Corporation.
Yes, a very good evening to you, tuned into UBC TV. We come to you once again with something else, not news this time. My name is Michael Jordan Lukomwa, and thank you so much for keeping it with us. Now, Uganda is joining the rest of the world to celebrate and be part of the Science Week. I beg your pardon. Uganda will join the rest of the world to celebrate the International Day for Science, and that will be the 10th of November. Every year, this time 2021, we shall have that day as well. But towards that day, there are activities in the 7 days that follow, that come before that day, and that is the National Science Week. We have officials and scientists here with us to talk about this week. Look at the science as a sector in Uganda. How much fruits are there? What do we have to pride in? And where are the gaps? Again, what is the day all about? And what do they have as we look at the whole week? You're welcome. And let me just introduce the guests that we have. From my extreme right, I have Miss Brenda Nakaziwe. She's the chairperson of the National Science Week Organizing Committee. Madam, we're very happy to have you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, Uganda. Good evening, Africa. And maybe good morning somewhere else. Thank you.
In the middle is Honorable Professor Sunday Stevens Tikodri Tokboa, the Executive Chairman of Kira
Motors Corporation.
We're so glad to have you, sir.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, viewers. Good evening, Uganda.
Okay, and just near me here is Dr. Jennifer Serwanga, the Assistant Director, Uganda Virus Institute. You're most welcome, madam.
Thank you very much. Good evening, viewers. Good evening, Ugandans. Good evening, everyone.
Okay, I'll start with you, Ms. Nakaziwe. Tell us about this week in Uganda and briefly about the day internationally to do with science.
Thank you very much. Indeed, Uganda is joining the rest of the world to commemorate the World Science Day for Peace and Development. This day was inaugurated in 1937 by UNESCO, and ever since then the world has been celebrating. Uganda too. This year we are celebrating it differently. We have taken a whole week in what we have dubbed the National Science Week. This year's National Science Week comes with a new strategic direction that we actually want to make the country aware of. It is being hosted, organized, prepared by Science, Technology and Innovation, Office of the President, what we used to have as the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation.
Okay.
And in partnership with the Private Sector Foundation, Uganda. So the new strategic direction of science, technology, and innovation actually revolves around 6 prioritized industrial value chains. And everything, right from this National Science Week to the World Science Day and to the end of the NDP 3, the National Development Plan 3, for science, technology, and innovation is going to revolve around this. Taking you through really briefly, we have what we call the pathogen economy. You'll be hearing Dr. Jennifer here talking about it a little more. We are talking about advancement for our country in the area of disease prevention and treatment. And for this, we look at things like vaccines for prevention, we look at therapeutics, drugs or treatment, and then we look at diagnostics. All of us here, I think, have undergone a PCR or, or an RDT for COVID.
Yes.
It's the latest that we can talk about, being that we are amidst a pandemic. What are we out to do as Uganda as we promote science, technology, and innovation? Our very own scientists like you here have actually worked on vaccines, have worked on drugs, on therapeutics, and diagnostics, even that PCR that we have been paying so expensively for. Go to, and many more in that area. Go to the digital economy. We are looking at interventions as we talk around service delivery, efficiency, using the digital spaces to actually provide solutions. Where Uganda can develop her own systems, they are in charge of the systems, they are in charge of the data, but also working around supporting all these other economies and service delivery, as we still shall hear. We have what we call beauty and apparel. This is where we are having local content. All these, by the way, we are talking about local content, where we are looking at science, the fabrics that we have. Talk about the banana. What can we get out of there? The textiles, the leather, scientifically going through the process to ensure safety, skin care, hair care. And then the other fourth industrial value chain is the agro-security. Time immemorial, we have worked, we have toiled with, equipment, if I could say the hand hoe, but now we are looking at improving, increasing productivity. At the National Development Plan level, NDP 3, we are actually talking about increasing household income at national level, the overall right down. So as we talk about agro-security, where most of our people actually lie, what are we doing as science, technology, and innovation to actually improve productivity? So technologies around and everything, we shall be talking about it. And finally, mobility. In all this, in breaking all these 6 prioritized industrial value chains, we are letting the country know the strategic direction for science, technology, and innovation, Office of the President, what we used to have as the former Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation. Mobility, solutions that are actually environmentally friendly, decongesting the cities, talking about actually working on our own automobiles and producing all these, the batteries and everything that we are talking about. Look at the buses that we are working around. About 30,000 parts of a bus when you talk about Kira Motors. And we have identified scientists, innovators along the value chain that are actually able to produce some of the parts right here. Talk about the charging batteries. Talk about the charging systems. So I'll leave it at this for that. I'll leave it at this for now, and really pointing the country toward the strategic direction of our science, technology, and innovation.
Thank you so much, Brenda. We'll get back to you to know more about the day. Professor, we've had a very good picture about the week internationally. Give us a picture. Does the world really have the responsibility to celebrate science? Why?
It does. It does. Why? Because development per se, wherever, is now grounded in science, technology, and later the innovations. So we as a country, Uganda, should be part of that movement forward.
At that very point.
There's no alternative.
Yes, at that very point.
Yes.
Are we part of the movement in the real sense of being part of the movement?
It's difficult to measure and answer, accurately what you're asking. But I think I'd rather give you where we came from and where we are now.
Fine.
Maybe that will help.
Yes.
Okay. The period that Uganda has existed right from the time of colonialism can basically be broken up into the pre-independence period. We are talking about the period before 1962.
Yes.
Then we have that period from 1962 up to, shall we say for convenience, 1986, okay, and after 1986.
Yes.
So the period before independence, we had this government which was around East African Common Services Organization, which eventually became the East African Community. So science, technology, and whatever innovations were there at that stage, we are organized around that entity.
Yes.
And they were looking at the three East African countries at that time, Tanganyika, Kenya, and Uganda. Now, the kind of science and the technology that was at that point was more really to see how the production of crops like cotton, like coffee, and the tea, which were being produced here for export to the colonial countries, could be enhanced. Or the viruses, which I think she will talk more about that later, the diseases which were here, like trypanosomiasis, malaria, I think bilharzia was also here around that time, how those could be addressed effectively. So that was really the purpose of science, technology at that time. There wasn't anything like innovation we were talking about. Then came the period of independence. Now that is when the government of Uganda now had a program of development of the country which should have been structured around industrialization. We did not have the capacity to do that. But whatever program there was essentially to see how we could fit in the bigger program. African countries came together, and eventually they worked out the Lagos Plan of Action, which would guide the development of science in the African countries. Now, it did not take us very far, and I remember we had the political turmoil during that period. And the next time we have serious engagement with science and technology is essentially around 1986. Because prior to that, we were trying to fit in the world framework that you asked me about earlier, how Uganda could play its role as a component of the bigger world. Now, and I remember because of the political turmoil we had from about 1970 to 86.
Yes.
Science
71, 79.
Science did not move much. And whatever industry was in place went down. And the economy, as you remember, was not performing well. And even areas like energy sector, production went about 59% for the energy and so on. Then comes 1986, which is now the period after 1986. For the first 2 years or so, there wasn't much activity.
It was just picking up pieces.
Picking up. But the government did realize that there needed to be something done in the education sector so as to push development of science, innovation, and technology. So the very first thing they did was actually, the president did, was to start Mbarara University of Science, Technology,
Yes.
Mbarara University of
Science and Technology.
A must. Deliberately. Why deliberately? Because remember, Makerere had been there for a long time, since 1926. But when he did engage us, said, look, we now need to take a different direction with the development of science, technology, and our education and our economic development. Unfortunately, we were very rigid at the university, at Makerere. Now, when he couldn't get that option of us adjusting our programs so as to fit in the new alignment, it starts Mbarara University of Science and Technology, deliberately as a science-based institution. And then that was followed by the setting up of the Kajubi Commission, because the education system had collapsed. Okay? So Kajubi was set up so as to overhaul the entire education system. And
You're breaking down the chronology of how we came to where we are currently.
Where we are now.
I'm following.
Yeah. So with the Kajubi report and the white paper that followed, we now had a framework that should guide us. Unfortunately, that framework did not engage much in the development of science or technology or innovation.
Okay.
We needed a second commission, McGregor, and it's McGregor who now defined where the core of higher education should be, where the core of our science and technology should be. And that was captured in our NDP-1, which was one of the 6 NDPs to constitute the Vision 2040 agenda. So there we got a direction as to what we should follow in order to get our science and technology to move us to where we want to develop and industrialize.
Professor,
Yep.
how would you describe the state at which we are in terms of science as a country?
I think it's promising. We could have done better if first the fundings had been available.
Okay, don't go to the explanations.
Yes,
Your term is promising.
It's promising.
Yes,
Why?
you took the role of giving us the historical picture.
Because
and all
deliberately we have gone out to start higher institutions of learning that are based on sciences.
Beautiful. By the time of independence, we were on a par with some countries in terms of economic muscle and things like that.
Right.
If you rate their scientific advancement and where we are now, it is appalling. You can even compare us with countries like South Africa, which got their independence in 1994, with us already celebrating over 20 years of independence. If you compare how far they have gone in terms of advancement, in terms of science, we are still not anywhere in terms of competition. What explains that,
I'm
Professor?
not so sure that South Africa is the best country to compare ourselves with. Reason this: under apartheid, South Africa was virtually ostracized.
Okay.
Developments were going on there, but basically under the thumb of the whites, shall I say, the white people. The independence you're talking of, 1994, is really a formality.
Okay.
Developments, economic developments had been going on. I think the best guys you would have, as compared would be the Asian tigers, the Malaysians, and all that.
I gave up on those ones because you would tell me the political turmoil we had from the 1966 to 71, 86.
So what I can say now is...
but we can still compare ourselves with Kenya and some other guys near us. Their steps a little far from where we are. You enter a supermarket and they have a lot of products there produced from within their territories. What explains our state? Because you said our state is promising.
Yes.
What explains that?
What made Kenya leave us behind, if you like, is that the policy of import substitution which Kenya adopted, meaning the products you are talking about, which are in the supermarkets, are produced inside there in Kenya. Us, for a long time, we depended on products that are produced in Kenya, isn't it? We're one of the biggest markets.
We don't. For a long time, we have not been producing.
Yeah, we have not been producing.
Yes.
So,
if I'm to quote Brenda, it is science that facilitates production.
So
did I get you right?
Oh, yeah.
Where
so
did we
this
stay
move,
behind?
this move to have import substitution executed here, to produce our own things here, started, shall we say, about 10 years ago? Probably 10, 15 years ago. Okay? And this was after a deliberate policy, by actually the president to push this country to move along scientific lines for its development. And in this industrialization, which means producing these parts in this country, based on probably ultimately our raw materials, is the way to go. So that is the promising bit that I am talking about. We have now agreed that the way forward is not really to continue importing, products produced elsewhere, but can we work on our own? And this is where the innovations now come in. Okay?
With a whole university
Yes.
established to facilitate science in this beautiful country of ours, and the Kajubi Commission and all those steps that you have talked about, plus the others that we know. Why still do we see, because I agree with you 100%, our state is promising.
Now,
why promising, Professor?
A major hitch still there is what we train our young minds with. That's in the education. Essentially, the curriculum of our higher institution of learning, where we should have been producing this, has remained basically unchanged.
Thank you so much, Professor. I'll get back to you.
Yes.
Let me go to Dr. Serwanga here. Doctor, has the science situation in Uganda been felt in your sector?
The science situation in my sector has been felt. I can't tell you that there hasn't been any training. Our biggest crisis is really the funding. It is not cheap to do science.
So the scientists we are, Uganda, has not been felt in your sector? Like production of medicines by Ugandans, save for Covidex and things like that. Have you felt the scientists in Uganda, in your sector, virus research and things like that?
So the research has been going on. The understanding of how the body works and response has been going on. What we need is known, and what we need to do was known. But for you to do your own agenda, you need to have funding prioritized for that kind of work. So a lot of the work before, in terms of informing disease prevention, has been coming from collaborations. You have to write maybe a grant, and the funder has also their own agenda, so you kind of fit in what they are doing. You can't own and make products if you didn't fund it. So for you to come up with vaccines or therapeutics or things like that, the country has to prioritize those kind of items and fund them. Then you own them, and then you should be able to be part of the production.
So in your view, if you were to look at a general picture, what has kept us at the promising level is funding.
What has kept us at the promising level is funding. We've tried as much as possible to train. We have mentored, but you can't do what you want to do because everything is very costly. I can tell you that just to make a vaccine, a small amount of what you need to inactivate costs very, very much, costs 10 million, just a small amount of 100 mils. And that is not enough for you to make for the whole country. So every item as you move along the line is very expensive and it's imported. So we need to move away from that level, have our own agenda, and maybe be part of also the value chain, produce some of the things that you need to move along as you make your products, so that then you can be sustaining, because the training is there for people to do those things that we need to do, if supported by the government.
Professor here is a senior like yourself. He hinted something to do with what we teach our children at lower levels. What do you think about that?
What we teach our children is kind
As
of
an explanation
detached.
of what keeps us.
Yes, so it's very important that these children attach, and I'm happy that things changed a bit from the way we learned. They go and attach to different workplaces and do internships and live the real world. But right from where they are taught, it would be a nice thing for them to not to just write notes, but to kind of have some bit of practice and look into something that leads to innovation. It shouldn't be a very academic kind of training only.
Okay, Dr. Professor wanted to
Just
add something.
Complement. Basically, the knowledge I give to the students at the university level in the lecture room should be the type of knowledge that enables this young person to go out there and do something with it. For example, I'm sharing a story with my other colleague there, how my own son, when he was in P5, and they were learning about this physics, that when you move a force through a distance, it does work. Okay? So he learned that, and as I went to pick him, he asked me on the way, Daddy, we were told that when you move a force, it does work. I said, yes, that is correct. Then he asked me, so what? It took me time to explain to him that the fact that when you push a force, it does some work, can be used to realize other things. For example, your electricity. I was chairman of the generation company at that time. I told him, for example, that water over on Lake Victoria, when it falls through a distance of, say, 20 meters, it goes there, falls in a machine called a turbine, it turns it. That turbine turns a generator, and this electricity you get here is as a result of that. So by knowing that when I push a force through a distance, it does work, I can use that to create other things, other products like the electricity, and this can apply to them. So it is not useful for me to know what the physical law is if I do not know what I can use it for when I get out. And the kind of knowledge we're pushing in our institutions, unfortunately, are the type that I will remember and get a first class as a result of remembering this. But I think we need to go beyond that. And that means that my own colleagues should be now engaged in showing each of these kids that, you see, what I've taught here will be applied to get that product, which I think she needs as with innovation, to get that product. But that's what we're not doing. And I think it's probably 10% of people who are involved in applying what we learn in the universities in order to deliver some products. So
Brenda, you talked about the new ministry. When you hear what Dr. Serwanga here is talking about, one, funding, then you add what Professor is talking about, what we teach in school. How is the new ministry solving these two to have science into effect in this beautiful country?
Thank you very much. Yes, so talking through these 6 prioritized industrial value chains, we are actually sending out a message that everyone has a contribution to make to or in the value chain. If we are talking about, let's say, drugs or vaccine manufacturing, there is someone that will do that basic science, get that prototype, and then actually get out still and test it into what we call the clinical trials. Then someone still along the value chain will actually get it to the level of commercialization and industrialization. So when we talk about science, technology, and innovation, OP, the new ministry, if we may, we are looking at churning out products so that we are also able to get onto the market. For example,
is it that looking at the ends, waiting for what comes out at the end, and not paying attention to the means? Because
a value.
their concerns are to do with the means. She's talking about funds. To create just a simple dose, she needs 10 million or more. She's talking about the gaps within the education system. You're talking about the products.
It is a value chain. Even if, as someone who is doing commercialization, if there's no one that started it at some point, even if I wait, at the end, it will not come through.
So how do we
So
help
let
the
me give
person?
you the story
Okay.
of 2020, as the world was actually tucked away after having been hit by the pandemic. Our very own Uganda. The newest agency under the ministry, the former Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, through what we call PRESIDE, the Presidential Scientific Initiative on Epidemics, put together scientists. It's actually the president that directed and said, I need a platform where we can have response tools to the pandemic. Personally, I'm a frontliner. I've been there fighting Ebola, even COVID. This whole time, right from Feb, even before Uganda declared her index case, I even never stayed home, not even a day. But getting simple masks, getting what to use was hard. So, with the visionary leadership of His Excellency, he appointed the Honorable Minister now, who was the Senior Presidential Advisor on Epidemics then, the Honorable Dr. Monica Msenero, said, let's put together scientists to get local tools that will actually combat and mitigate the effect of COVID. From the news all over, we were seeing in different countries, and then we said, what can we do as a country? So scientists were put together into what we actually normally call VDT. Scientists to work on vaccines, scientists to work on therapeutics, scientists to actually work on diagnostics. So getting to what you're asking, scientists set working. They started working, and that's how, even as Dr. Jennifer will explain, that's how we have candidate vaccines. We are at animal trials right now, as we say. The PCR test, the kit, is actually only awaiting the construction of the manufacturing, or the factory. And then talk about the drug. Uganda's first clinical trial for natural products, what we call UBV, that the president launched on the 27th of January, we are awaiting results. It is a clinical trial. What does that mean? The outcome could be positive, could be negative. That's how science becomes expensive. Even this camera into which I'm speaking, it didn't start at that point. It started at a prototype, and here we came, different versions of it, and these bulbs here that are lighting up on us here. Up to the 99th time, did we have finally a bulb working through? What am I saying? You have asked. The process is on. The direction is clear. We are not just a service ministry. We are out to offer solutions. We are out to ensure we get our own products on the market. Get the scientists in engineering working. Get the scientists in medicines in what working. Get us in the beauty and apparel. Instead of importing all the time, yes. What are we doing? Go to what we are even
Brenda,
looking at.
this is what you're not giving me. You are putting our products to the market.
Yes.
Beautiful. But like you said, by the time we see a camera standing,
yes,
there is a process to put it into existence.
Yes.
These are the two people. They have aired out two concerns. One, funding, then the kind of gaps within bringing up the scientists that give you the products. What plans does the ministry have to handle the two concerns and others? Because you will not have products, or even next year you'll be in Kololo with the same products that you have been there with today, or the same quality, or even poorer, if the concerns have not sorted. What plans are there to see these concerns touched?
Here we are. By the time we are talking about 4 candidate vaccines for COVID in a year, check out how many countries have reached that in this time, where we are all saying this. You see very deliberate, very meticulous efforts to actually ensure. What does that mean? Funding. Ask the scientists whether they just woke up and went to their bank accounts to get us here. No, there is a deliberate effort to ensure we also join the rest of the world. So the funding, as it comes through with this first challenge, of course we've had challenges, but with COVID, I think there's been a lot of learning, and for every country. Uganda can start here. There is something we can point to and say, yes, if we are looking at COVID, we can also say, yes, it came, but this is how we also have been able to respond. So money has indeed been committed, funds have been committed to doing the same. So resources, the plan is that we shall have resources to even get more products on the market. We do not only have COVID, we get many others. For example, that PCR does not only test COVID, it tests many other diseases. So as we start manufacturing, scientists have sat, as we work on the factory, we are going to solve that because the science now has been developed and worked on here. But there is an investment that is being made. We are working on our own factories. We are working on even skilling our own scientists. So we cannot really downplay what is being done, what has been done, and what is going to be done. So, like I've showed you, in just a time space of just less than maybe a year and a half, here we are. So the steady progress is actually on. We are not relenting. We are not getting poorer products,
you said,
but we are actually moving ahead.
Something small. You talked about that something to do with the vaccines, that they are at a certain stage.
Yes.
If you could remind me, what is that stage?
Okay. I'm calling on Dr. Jennifer because she is actively here from the scientist herself.
The question is for you, and this is my last one for you at this point. What explains, because COVID was here since 2019, it became serious in Uganda early 2020, March there. And that's when the president convened the scientists and this work started. Administratively, what do you think could have slowed the production of the vaccines?
I think the message we should be bringing out to the country is we didn't stay down, holding up and saying, okay, the monster is here, here we are.
Okay.
Check with the countries around you and beyond and see how many have actually come out. That is actually not that important. What is important is we joined in, we are working, the scientists are working. Even these vaccines you're seeing, most really take time. The polios that we've had, the polio vaccines, they take time. We keep getting booster doses. So let's applaud our own scientists. Let's really thank government for coming out to support. Dr. Jennifer earlier alluded to the fact that it was majorly where we began, majorly as a result of collaborations. There's a funder somewhere. Where is the patent? Is the product even ours? But now you're talking about a vaccine made in the country. I think if there's anything that we should be talking about is we are having something Ugandan, our own scientists working with money here that has been given by the support of the government, and here we are working. The progress is steady and we are going right ahead, not only in the face of the pandemic, COVID, but also for other diseases. So what I want to say is that even when that could remain, could be a challenge, the funding and all those things that have been mentioned. But you and I can actually appreciate what has been invested and the more investment that we are actually getting in that area.
Doctor, you wanted to add something.
Yes, I wanted to
her
supplement
submission.
on what you were asking her, is that where is the process? I would like to add on to what I said, that there was a change in that government committed, and we've received a lot of funding through the presidential initiative,
Okay.
which starts right from the beginning. You know, if you want to make a vaccine,
Yes.
you can only own it if you started with your own virus. Yes, it's a circulating virus, but somebody isolates it from another country, they put a patent. So if you want to use that to make a vaccine, most of it, of the money goes to another person. So we have started right from the beginning, going into the hospitals, isolating this from our own patients, and then using this to be able to make the different types of vaccines that we want to make.
Okay.
So it's going to be Ugandan owned. It's starting right from the beginning of the process until when the product. And it's not just about COVID. So it is also transferring the technology, teaching other people, teaching younger people to be able to use this to reposition the country to fight any epidemic, because we are along the epidemic hotspot. We are becoming closer to the viruses because we've cut all the trees. Viruses which used to live in the forests with animals that we were not close to are coming closer to us. So this is not going to be something that is infrequent. We are going to see more and more epidemics, and therefore we need to be prepared. We need to isolate those viruses ourselves and take them through the process of vaccination. And now that government has committed, it is going to be much easier. They have given us the funds, they have given us equipment, they have given us the ability to train also other people so that the country is prepared. And in the process, you can make your population safe, but you can also sell the vaccines. You see, everybody is making money out of vaccines. It is also an economy to look at.
Doctor, COVID brought us running from the bed. Do you agree with me?
Yes, COVID woke us up. We used to kind of address other people's agenda, but now those things are going to be done locally, and we have woken up.
How come we didn't have these ideas? We have had, actually, we are that part of the world that has always been hit hard by diseases from all directions. How come we were here and we were watching? Actually, the president has a word, kulambala.
There was a lot of kulambala, but
exactly.
When you have that political will, that political will is what drives the scientists. Everything, as she said, is presidential initiative. The funds flow from the top, and the scientists will do their part.
Okay.
So the kulambala is going to go away at all levels.
Okay, yes, Professor.
Yeah, regarding the process, because which they could answer, I think I'm better placed to answer that one.
Give us.
Of training these science people who will go and deliver.
Actually, I wanted to bring that to you.
Yes.
To explain more what you said, there were gaps in terms of training.
You go into our institutions of higher learning. Take the engineering programs. The student comes in the first year. We deliver this knowledge which you have in the books all over online and so on. This student does not get to begin working on his or her project until he's at the beginning of the final year. And so the kind of project that the student ultimately works on is one that will enable him to pass or her to pass and get his first class. Unlike, unfortunately he's not here, but this gentleman here, he started working Cosmos, started working on his project. It was second year? Second year. And through that process, he developed those schemes, those concepts. By the time he was in fourth year, he already had a prototype to go and do and work with out there. And I think he's producing some things for Kira Motors, and so he will talk about it when he comes. Now, if we could do this to each and every student, that a student coming in there, engineering for example, should be knowing what he should be working on at the end of his fourth year or by the fourth year. Then I can assure you by the time these people leave the university, there will be something to work on. and that will deliver the product that Brenda
is
referring to.
Waiting for.
But otherwise, what we bring out, 90% people will pass, even maybe with first-class degrees. But there's nothing to show as a result. And
Professor, you have been at the university for some good time.
30, yes.
30 years.
Yes. So this is what I'm lamenting about.
What explains that? Are you talking about Makerere University or even,
no, even the new
universities established to do sciences?
The new ones are basically replicating what is there. When we had this Omaswa Commission report.
Most of your students actually are sponsored by government on taxpayers' money.
Yes.
And you people then let them out, I would say, half-baked,
if
I understand what you say.
We let them out with knowledge that does not enable them to do or to deliver the products out there. That is my complaint. Okay?
How can we solve that then?
We need to adjust. I think we needed deliberately to overhaul that curriculum, that system of education at that point. Ideally, it should start from primary or secondary, okay? But we don't have the money. We don't have the financing to do that all at a go. Can we start from somewhere? Can we start with the universities and have this new curriculum, new direction, so that the kids coming out have got something in the hand to show that this is what I want, I need funding from government or from private sector and so on to work on. When you interact with him, he will share his story.
Professor,
yep.
There have been initiatives to drive the direction of science, especially from the secondary school level. Can we build on that as a country?
That won't be effective, first because the personnel driving that process themselves also need to be retooled. They're the products of the previous thing. They need to be
the teachers, actually, I'm understanding it.
The
teachers are products of what you have just explained.
Described.
Goodness.
So they won't be doing it much better. And I think we need to start this retooling somewhere or realignment somewhere.
Do we have the time?
I think we have the time, I think the most effective spot is at the universities. Because what will then happen is, from the secondary schools, as soon as they enter the university, they will be taken up and realigned now to pursue this new line which we have structured. Ideally, we should have started in the primary, as I said, or secondary school. But the finances will not permit. We had that story of, I don't know whether she's a beneficiary. I remember when I just joined the university, there was the issue of having very few girls in the university, more so in engineering. And what did we say? Say, look, there are these girls who come up to A level, but beyond they don't continue. How can we admit more of this? Solution, give them affirmative action, 1.5, okay? And many girls have not come. I know she didn't benefit from it, but many have come. Okay, and positively we encourage the number of our, university ladies, engineers for that matter, to increase. So this is what we're going to have to do.
I want a comment from each one of you about this. There was excitement during the Teachers' Day when the president said he has money to increase payment of science teachers. Somebody understood it as the president attracting children to be science teachers, but not actually scientists. Because he says the doctors are ever striking. The engineers, many of them don't have jobs. If the president ensured that at least these people have a good life after university, every child would admire to be an engineer, a doctor or something, not a teacher. What is your comment, Professor, before I hear from Dr. and Brenda?
No, that to me is not really a solution, because it's just postponing things. I think an idea,
which is not a solution,
that you single out the science profession, you enhance them, pay more and so forth. That's not an ultimate solution. You will want to borrow from the German system of education, whereby the curriculum does not distinguish between arts and sciences
science.
until the child is 18. And 18 is the point when the child enters into university. So from all those years, from first year up to 18, the child is learning all these subjects. You don't know who is a scientist, you don't know who is an artist.
Not until they are at the time of going to university.
That time, and even when they now branch to go to arts, they still have the science background. So this problem where you ask the young kid to drop sciences in S2,
Senior
S2
3.
Senior 3 these days. During my time it was S2. I dropped history. Very unfortunate. But later, of course, after graduating, I realized even science has history. So I had to go back and guide. So the education system, again, at that level.
So you think teachers should be handled the same way?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Professor.
But the problem is under our circumstances, where we need more scientists and we don't have them, you have to do that affirmative action, which I think government is.
Doctor, what do you think?
I see it as an effort to improve on the numbers of people who are taking interest in sciences. The president has been kind of, even for us to do this economy based on science, we need scientists. And there has been encouragement for people to take on sciences, but still we have less people doing sciences.
So
I'm seeing it as
payment,
a kind of affirmative action.
Can it alone really give you that result?
It is. It alone
you still
cannot
have
do
schools
it,
where
but
people have never seen a burette. That is something I can also remember in science. People that have never seen a burette.
it's not a single solution.
Exactly.
Other things have to be added on, but it's a way of kind of promoting people to get there into the sciences. More needs to be done, not just that.
I'll wind up on this with you, Brenda. What do you think?
I think what we have is we may not necessarily start whining about what is here and what is there, what has not been and what is, but what efforts have been put from all directions to ensure that we actually get to the desired. Earlier you were comparing us to countries here and there.
Yes.
They also have a story. Uganda too has a story to tell. Prof has been taking us through this, whereby now, let me use this pathogen economy that we are talking about, where through the years, and now finally we are talking about an anti-tick vaccine. We are talking about vaccines for COVID. It shows you that the efforts, the concerted efforts from all angles are actually yielding. So, whichever efforts can be taken are actually welcome. We do the midterm reviews, we do the after reviews maybe, and then we go ahead. But let's not thwart any effort. Let's embrace, let's work within, let's support. As we talk about our scientists, let's believe in our scientists, because even scientists elsewhere all start with trials, they all start with all these things. So with all these affirmative actions, that's why Brenda is here. She could probably have been, you know, I was a beneficiary. Not so young, not so old, but I was a beneficiary. So every effort from every side is actually welcome, from both the private sector to our parents. Actually, everyone plays a role.
You see, Brenda, you stay in Uganda.
Yes.
On top of the president giving these teachers some more money, as we take a break, what else do you think he should add on?
Exactly
in
what
terms of boosting science in the secondary schools?
Exactly what we are talking about. Let me use this very science week that we are talking about.
Okay.
Our youngest competitor or nominee is 9 years. She looked at the pandemic, this time we've been in, and she was like, let me work on an app that can help my fellow pupils elsewhere study better. We had categories below 18 and above 18. And we were able to get nominees in those different categories. What does that show you? Something is happening. Okay. Go to Kololo, come to Kololo tomorrow. You're able to see different innovators, different age groups, a wide range of products. So this STIOP, in addition to everything that is being done, there is nurturing happening, but it has to be more deliberate. When we first had our scientists come together, I remember the question the senior presidential advisor then asked. She said, "Dear scientists, do you actually think Uganda can produce a vaccine for COVID?" And tell me, we were on the call. The answer wasn't an outright yes, but mindset change along, even as money comes in, when our minds are changed, mindsets are changed, we are actually able to achieve. I could talk about...
She could use us, Kira.
Exactly,
Okay.
You know. So here we are, mindset change, the funding, the affirmative action, the whatever it is to put together and cause these synergies work together, and we shall actually achieve.
Thank you so much, Brenda Nakaziwe, the chairperson of the organizing committee for the Science Week. As we move towards the day, Dr. Jennifer Serwanga, the Assistant Director, Uganda Virus Institute, and Honorable Professor Sandy Stevens Tikodri for the deliberations. We're taking a very short break to you watching, but do not go anywhere. We have some more two people to join us, a lady and a gentleman, scientists. And I'll be here to talk to them on your behalf. Thank you so much for watching.
Grow together with one of Uganda's largest companies. Apply for MTN shares for as low as 100,000 Uganda shillings. And when you apply using MTN Mobile Money, you get 10 free extra shares for every 100 shares you apply for. Dial *165*65# or use the MyMTN app to apply now. The terms and conditions of the offer and other important information are set out in the prospectus. For assistance, visit any MTN service center or Stanbic Bank branch countrywide or a licensed broker.
Kagano twalekedde ekyatulese tuzze tukalanga enfunda eziwerako ddala eno ye GoTV Super ey'abakaguje njagala weekaanyi ewatali kwemamaaza olwo tuba tusimbudde ne GoTV Super Duper waawawa era nga bakutuusyako ekiga ekyabakabejja abasajja eŋŋwaŋŋuli kw'ogatta ne busineema obujjudde omuhabati ku $5,015 waawawa soka bulaza weefunye ekirungo kya GoTV Super ekijjudde obulungi ove mu baaje.
The Uganda Cranes national football team soars higher yet again to qualify for the much-anticipated World Cup in Qatar 2022 with a game against Kenya. Support our boys from the comfort of your home with friends and family as Uganda takes on Kenya on 11th November at St. Mary's Chitenda Stadium starting 4 p.m. Uganda Cranes Paka Qatar with Airtel, the official sponsor of the Uganda Cranes football team.
On the journey of AGOA, one of the things that first happened was to train over 2,000 girls.
So there were many problems for investors at the time I joined Uganda Investment Authority. And our role was to identify them, go to government and say, you've got to change this.
In 1986, we had about 2,000 kilometers of what you would have called paved road, but in very sorry state.
I want to thank UBC that enables us to get these very important messages.
Showcasing where we were and how far we have come.
The Kalanga Infrastructure Services Limited, we signed an implementation agreement where we are running 2 ferries, we're generating and distributing power to the entire Bugala Island, supplying clean piped water
Even Enterprise Uganda. We started with 5 people. Today we're all over the country. When you are approached by UBC,
every week,
please make time and offer us the benefit of knowing where you came from, what you are doing, where you are headed to, so that we can all appreciate that things can be done.
We also have enough air.
It is intellectually engaging.
And you can only become a leader when there are problems.
I like that.
The same applies to Rwanda, Burundi. So what are we federating?
Whether what's from another country can be, I mean, somebody must be there to hold everybody accountable.
But at the moment, we would rather deal with what we have, make it right.
First of all, we as elites of Uganda, we have made Museveni the issue. I can tell Museveni is not the problem of Uganda. The problems of Uganda are much deeper. We can change the next 20 presidents and we'll still be this roundabout.
Deeply incisive.
The different political forces that we have in the country, in the country, we don't seem to really have achieved that minimum political consensus over certain things.
Authentically symbolic and insightful. Behind the Headlines, every Wednesday at 10 p.m. with Charles Odong Thor. All on your public broadcaster, UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Deposit money onto your Airtel Money account. Reactivate your Airtel Money account with a deposit of a minimum of 1,000 shillings and get 10 minutes free Airtel to Airtel calls valid for 24 hours. Offers applicable for a one-time transaction. Terms and conditions apply. Airtel Money. Simple, secure, borderless.
Kagalino twalekedde ekyatulese tuzze tukalanga enfunda eziwererako ddala eno ye GoTV Super ey'abakaguje njagala weekaanyi ewatali kwemamaaza olwo tuba tusimbudde ne GoTV Super Duper waawawa era nga bakutuusaako ekigo eky'abakabejja abasajja eŋŋwaŋŋuli kwogata ne busineema obujjudde omuhabati ku 5,015 waawawa soka blaza weefunye ekirungo kya GoTV Super ekijjudde obulungi ove mu baaje.
Transact using Airtel Money. Use Airtel Money to send money, buy airtime for self, do mobile banking, make merchant payments and international money transfers with a minimum of 1,000 shillings and get 5 minutes free Airtel to Airtel calls valid for 24 hours. 3 minutes offer is for any of these fast 5 transactions within the same calendar month. Terms and conditions apply. Airtel Money. Simple, secure, borderless.
Yes, thank you so much for keeping it with us. We are still having a discussion on the Science Week. Uganda is having a number of activities as we run towards the International Day to celebrate science. That will be on the 10th of November 2021. I have a number of scientists here. We had a professor and a doctor, and they have taken leave. I now have other 2 scientists that have joined the panel. Besides Miss Brenda Nakaziwe, the chairperson of the organizing committee, the lady at the extreme end, I've been given more 2 scientists, Mr. Dr. Cosmas Mwikirize. He's a lecturer at Makerere University and also a director at Innovex. We'll get to know.
Good evening, viewers.
We'll get to know more about Innovex.
Thank you.
Then I have also Miss Nachimuli Thatcher. She's the product design manager at Kira Motors. You're most welcome.
Thank you so much. Good evening.
Yes. Dr. Mwikirize, while you were away, I want just to, in the news, there's something we call balance. If you accuse mothers of something, when we get an opportunity to talk to them, we get an answer. Professor Tikodri said we have gaps in the training of the scientists that we have in this country. What is your view being a lecturer at Makerere University?
Thank you.
Is it true? Why?
Thank you, Jordan, and good evening, our viewers. So, you've put me on the spot right there, but I'll try to give a balanced opinion. So, it is true, but we are devising ways of addressing it.
Okay.
You see, the students that we get at the university have, throughout their academic journey, have gotten used to what I usually call read, pass, and forget. Or sometimes it even gets worse, it's cram, pass, and forget. So they come to the university with this mentality of, what can I do to pass this and get done with it? And now, we have also not done justice on our side.
As lecturers?
As lecturers, some of us are old school. In fact, we've had a lot of challenges with online teaching because we're used to recycling notes. Or just going somewhere on Google and lifting material and bringing it in front of our students. But you see, we have to evolve with the time. In the current time, in the digital age, finding information is not the problem. Okay. So lecturers cannot be custodians of knowledge. They are just facilitators of the learning experience. So cognizant of that problem, which is on both ends, I'll speak for Makerere University because that's where I hail from. We have in the engineering school, particularly I'm from the School of Engineering, in the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering, we have introduced what we call problem-based learning in all our new curricula. So every course that can have a practical component will have it. So students get introduced to the theoretical component, yes. Then they do practicals in a lab environment. But on top of that, the lecturers also introduce problem-based scenarios, which lead students to a journey through how they can apply this, this knowledge that they have gained in an industrial setting. So we encourage them to even do mini projects, conduct mini projects in the courses that they pursue, before later on they start on their capstone project at the end of the final year. So yes, to answer your question, the challenge is there, but we are gradually addressing it.
How do you think as the nation we can handle it? Because we are not having Makerere University alone. We have scientists all over. You had me pushing government when it came to funding and all that. So if we push them and they release the funding, and again, I will not say people play around with it, but it doesn't get the effect to which government is directing it. What do you think can be done to check the processes of producing scientists in universities? As Makerere, you may have a solution, MUST may have a solution, but what general kind of measure can be put in place?
You see, Jordan, it's not always about money. It's not always about funding. Some solutions come from just a mindset change.
Okay.
The previous panelists were talking about how we have grown accustomed to this consumer culture, where we just want to transplant technology and bring it here, and we think it's going to be the panacea to solving all our challenges. It doesn't work that way. In a university, you can throw all the money you want at any problem, but if you don't have the will and the moral fiber to address that problem, then I think all the funding will be in vain. So Makerere University, of course, every university has its own institutional framework, but also universities have, I think, the University and Tertiary Institutions Act that governs them. Our leaders also have a Vice Chancellor's Forum in which they meet and share some of these challenges and how they are going about addressing them. So there's that interaction at a high level. So if it's a cross-cutting problem, then we trust that our leaders are going to also share experiences on how they are going about addressing it. And what is happening at Makerere will gradually also infiltrate the other universities, much as we can also learn from the other universities, because sometimes we also fall short.
Okay. We are going, in this particular segment, we're going to concentrate on innovations. Being an engineer and somebody from people that are making us proud. What do you think is limiting that line in our science field as a country? Innovation.
Innovation. I like that word because it's what makes the world go round. And I think we can say that every society is as good as the quality of its science, technology, and innovation. Now, Africa has always taken a back seat, at least in the recent past. We have grown accustomed to the tendency that we need to import technology to solve our socio-economic challenges. But in my view, and I believe in the view of all of us here, that is just a band-aid. You're just stopping the bleeding for a while, but the wound remains. The ultimate solution lies in getting people out of subsistence agriculture or modernizing agriculture, getting people into a formal economy, getting people into high-skilled jobs, and crafting a way for you to generally uplift the socio-economic standing of your citizens. If you don't do that, then you'll notice that, I mean, I'll give you a few examples. We have the technology boom right now. It's been on for the better part of the past 20 years, but internet penetration is still 26%. We have, I think, we say that we now produce even more electricity than we can consume. The electrification rate is about 25%. 75% of Ugandans still don't have access to electricity. Ask yourself why that is so. We have streams and rivers and lakes and seasonal rains, yes, all year round. But you hear, certain sections of the country, crying of drought, that their crops are failing, yet a river is just a few miles away. So it is because sometimes we need to step back and have a rethink. Can we really survive on just bringing technology in and hope that it's going to work? Or we need to involve society so that technology evolves with society organically, so that we create local solutions for local problems. Because when we do that, yes, we'll be developing our local human resource, we'll be creating jobs, and we'll be putting money into people's pockets. And that is what the theme of this Science and Technology Innovation Week is all about. How can we transform society through industrialization, through these value chains? Yes, we can, start slowly, but how can we gradually, replace some of these things that we're importing now? What can we locally manufacture here? And you've had, examples across the board, what Chira Motors is doing, what, UVRI and collaborators are doing in developing the vaccines. I could go on and on, but to me, that is the bottom line.
Okay.
Local industrialization to create jobs and develop human capacity.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Nachimuli Thatcher, you are the
product design manager. Yes.
At Chira Motors. In the first place, there was excitement on social media, yes, when the minister appeared before the committee. Manufacturing, assembling, to which, as a Ugandan, assembling is also a step to the manufacturing.
Yes.
As a Ugandan, on a nationalist kind of view, it is a stage to celebrate. I want you to clear the air to make the Ugandan there understand what should be pride in as far as these buses and the cars is concerned. Are we manufacturing or assembling?
Okay, thank you, Jordan, for that question.
I think to answer that question really well, I would have to make the normal Ugandan, like you've said, as a normal Ugandan, what is the automotive industry value chain?
Exactly.
The previous presenters and panelists have talked about the importance of value chains and supply chain localization and how that has a big role to play in industrialization and ensuring that you're tapping into all the opportunities that you have within a value chain. So for Kira Motors Corporation, which falls in the automotive industry, you have a value chain that starts from research and development. It starts from innovation. You have engineering. You have components, manufacturing components being systems, parts, and a part here being something like shock absorbers or filters or brake pads. And then you have whole vehicle assembly, which is what most Ugandans think is not manufacturing. And then you have marketing and sales, and thereafter you have after-sales services, and finally the use of the product. So if you look at that entire value chain, you find that innovation, research and development, as well as engineering, are usually grouped under the develop segment of the product. This is where you come up with the ideas of how the product is going to look, what performance does your vehicle have. For example, our buses are electric. And then the whole vehicle assembly, component manufacturing is usually what is grouped as manufacturing or production. So to the ordinary Ugandan, I would say that saying something like you are just assembling is just a lack of information or a lack of understanding of what it takes.
Exactly what happens.
What happens in the value chain. So if I'm making, for example, a vehicle or I'm a whole vehicle assembler, I'll give you an example of Kira Motors Corporation that is building buses here in Uganda. The buses have so many different components that are over 20,000, over 30,000. And these components include some of the ones I've told you, the filters, shock absorbers, the seats. As Kira Motors Corporation, you're not going to make all those for yourself because you don't have the capabilities or the capacity to make all the 30,000 parts on a vehicle. So your value in building the vehicle may be bringing all these components together, systems together. You're going to make the chassis and the frame for yourself. The frame is the body of the bus.
Yes.
You're going to make the components that require a lot of logistical costs, you're going to make for yourself to save costs. Then the components that are a bit smaller, require a larger or more complex process, you're going to outsource to companies like Innovex and other companies that make some of these parts, and then they're going to supply to you. But it's also important to note that at each of those segments in the value chain, research and development, there's a specific percentage of value that a manufacturer is gaining or a company is gaining. For example, in research and development, if you're looking at someone who is making like lithium-ion batteries that are very important for an electric bus, the value that they are going to gain from that part will vary depending on design. What are they doing to design the battery? Are they going to gain a value of, say, maybe about 30% because that's the most important tech or innovation within that battery? Then as they go further into putting that system into a vehicle, the value keeps on increasing or decreasing depending on whether the part is raw material intensive or whether it's value added intensive. So to the ordinary Ugandan, I would say that Kira Motors makes vehicles because we are doing research, design, and innovation. But at the same time, we are doing some component manufacturing on our side, as well as whole vehicle assembly. And then, of course, marketing and sales. So our participation in the value chain is holistic, right from the beginning to the end.
You are that kind of entity we feel proud of as Ugandans. I'm sure even those that make such comments, they must be very proud that they see a bus on the road and it has never gone beyond these borders of this country. But what is so special with your entity, and how broad or wide, or what kind of plans are there to expand beyond the 2-3 buses that we see?
Okay. So first of all, we don't have only 2 or 3 buses. We have made a number of products along the way, right from what Professor was talking about when we started with our the first electric vehicle made in Africa in 2011.
The green one?
Yes, the green car, which I think most Ugandans and most of the world is very familiar with. So those are some of the innovations that we have done along the way. We've worked on the Kayola solar bus as well. And all that product development has helped us improve our technology and our capacity as people who have never done this before to now be able to deliver a product that can actually be put on the market. And that's where the Kayola EVS, which is the electric city bus, and the Kayola diesel coach, which is the long distance bus, come into play. And as a company, we are partnering with some companies, including Tondeka Metro Company, which is a transport operator, as well as Rentco Africa, to see how to get these buses to the ordinary Ugandan like you and me. How can we get this innovation on the market to ensure that we are solving problems related to the transport sector in terms of traffic congestion, in terms of reducing the number of hours you're spending on the road in traffic jam, which are impacting on your productivity. If you're coming from a place like Mukono, it's going to take you about 1.5 hours to reach the city because you have over 50 people in front of you. Each of them is having only one person in their personal cars. So you want to reduce the number of cars on the road by creating a large volume vehicle that carries up to 90 people on the road and thereby takes a shorter time. So our plans are geared around solving that problem with that product on the market. And I like what the previous panelists talked about, problem solving, and also what Cosmas has talked about, using problem solving techniques in order to make people think about innovation. If you're in my field or in product design, we call it design thinking, where you're using problems to allow people to innovate, to allow people to, because at the end of the day, if you have the best idea in the world, if it's not solving anything, it's not doing anything for your economy, it's not doing anything for your country. So we need to see how we can look at the problems we have as Africans on the market and then come up with solutions to address those problems.
I'm still talking about our buses. What's the quality of these components that you people are putting in these buses? Let me sound that very local. Because
in terms of quality, you mean? In
terms of the iron bars, the things that you're putting in there, they are manufactured here. We see the welding in the videos, just as you can see, the welding and all that. How different is that from the ordinary welding that we see for a bus that is going to carry people from here to Mbali or to Mbarara and wherever? What's the difference with what is being done with its foundation, with the frames inside, for it to have capacity to carry the 90 people that you have said safely?
So I would say the difference comes in terms of design, looking at design in the sense of engineering, what kind of materials are the buses using, because like you have said, the frames are not using the ordinary structural steel that we use in our buildings for making windows and doors. There's a grade of automotive steel that is specifically required for you to make a frame for a body, and which we have not been using. Of course, we've been developing some products locally, and we've come into some challenges because the steel that we have is not recommended for automotive sector because it's not safe. And a key component about a vehicle product is its capabilities to meet safety. So the importance of quality comes in the sense that, are you meeting the safety requirements of the product because you're transporting people? So your product has to be tested to ensure that it's safe for people. So we test all the parts that we use in the vehicle. Before we even make the vehicle, we test them using computers, we simulate and ensure that the product is safe for the market. So the materials are tested, the steel, especially the structural materials are tested, the performance of the different parts is tested to ensure that what we put in the product is going to be safe and is also going to meet standards that are available on the market that have been set by UNBS as well as by international standards organizations. So that's what we would say is something that we have looked into a lot to ensure that we meet the quality that we need to meet.
Still as the product design manager, the choice of producing electric buses, electric automotives.
Yes.
What is the market like for them? Aren't you going to make losses? How much do we know about them as a community, your real home community, which would be your primary market? Aren't you going to find a hard time to convince us to buy these products?
Yes, I understand what you mean, and for us we look at it as an opportunity. It's not a problem, because if you look at where the vehicle market is going in 20-30 years, most governments, individuals are looking towards electrification, and this is because of the whole climate change agenda, the need to address the challenges that are coming up due to high carbon emissions. That, for example, Kampala is one of the most polluted cities in Africa. So you find that the need to solve those challenges becomes more important, because these have an adverse impact on our health, an adverse impact on the environment, as well as the kind of quality of air we are breathing in.
Okay.
So the solution of an electric bus, yes, may require a lot of mindset change, like that panelists have discussed, a lot of awareness creation, as well as government intention to ensure that this is mainstreamed. Government has to play a major role in not only creating awareness, but also facilitating the adoption of these electric buses. And electric bus adoption has to be facilitated, for example, by setting up the right charging infrastructure. If you have an electric car, I have an electric car, they have an electric car, Kira Motors is making electric buses, but there is no charging infrastructure in place, the buses won't work. And I know that the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development is working on a project to roll out charging infrastructure to support the uptake of electric buses. So that's one way in which we are going to encourage the public to take them up. Another
What's
way,
the durability of an electric bus?
It depends on the battery, because that's the most important component in the electric bus, or in an electric vehicle, for example, that's battery electric. So for ours, the Kayola EVS, we look at it in terms of performance. If our bus can perform at 100% for a period between 5 to 8 years. So that's the lifetime for it to perform at 100%. Then beyond 8 years, it keeps reducing and maybe goes to 75% until it reaches a state where it's not performing to the level that is required for a vehicle to
Do I then buy a new battery or something?
Yes, you can buy a new battery and replace the old batteries.
After how long of a journey do I have to recharge the battery?
So the Kayola EVS...
Can I charge and go to Mbarara and return?
How far is Mbarara from Kampala? About 280. Yes. So you can go to Mbarara, and I would advise you charge from Mbarara before you come back, because the range of our buses is 300 kilometers, meaning that you can move 300 kilometers on a single charge. And it takes about 1.5 hours to charge if you're using a fast charger.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
What I want to take to Brenda is good to start with you.
Yes, please.
Before even Kira EV, there are young men that have tried to put things together to come up with a car in Uganda. They have tried to put things together to come up with a plane. We were at some event in Zimbabwe where I filmed some man with a motorbike. Somebody one time got burnt in his plane. All that has happened in this country. And these are people that are not like Professor or Brenda Beat Thatcher here that have gone to university or anywhere. These are guys who sit down and play around with their hammers and things like that. What do you think about those innovators?
That's a very good question, Jordan. And the good thing about this driver Havig is that it's not going to leave anyone behind. So there is a huge role that those innovators can play in the local value chain for mobility. I know Kira Motors is, for example, already engaging some of those.
These ones have the attention of all of us.
Yes.
But these young men, you hear in Kayunga somebody has a plane.
Yes.
You come to Katwe and somebody has 2 cars in Katwe actually. What do you think about these guys?
Yes, they are doing very good work. Although the mobility industry is highly regulated, so that is why you have to be conscious of the safety of some of those innovations. How have they been tested to industrial standards? So I wouldn't advise Ugandans
but they have the idea.
They have the idea. So the best way would
something.
be to lift them up and see how we can link them with facilities that have state-of-the-art equipment that can help them bring a bit of finesse onto their products, or they can also make some components that can feed into let's say
do you guys fear these people?
No.
Do you look at them as competitors?
No,
not
because
at all.
Maybe, sorry.
No, please go ahead.
Cosmas. Yeah, if I could also talk about that a bit. You see, the industry is very wide. You have three-wheelers, you have two-wheelers, borders, motorcycles, you have buses, you have sedans, pickups, SUVs, and the variants of those are even much wider, because you could make electric cars, I could make diesel cars. So the competition, and you have a market of over 500,000 vehicles. It's projected that I think East Africa will need over 600,000 vehicles by 2030. So Kira Motors' projections alone of making about 5,000 buses a year will not sufficiently meet that market. So any player is free to come in. But what I wanted to touch on is that the most interesting thing, or the most important thing to note, is that there are people who have the will to innovate as well as the drive to innovate. And maybe like Dr. Cosmas has said, they have not been facilitated. They don't have access to these incubation centers, innovation labs, and they need that kind of facilitation. But at the same time, the supply chain of the automotive sector is big, like I talked about. Some of these people can come in and make vehicle parts, because those are components that are a bit smaller and are easier to standardize and ensure that you meet the requirements of the safety requirements as well as the international standards requirements.
Do you have plans as the Kira system?
Yes.
Do you have any plans of absorbing some of these young men?
So as part of NDP3, government has set up the Automotive Industry and Technology Park in Kayunga district, which Kira Motors was tasked with developing as a means of developing the supply chain. So at this park, it's about 2 square miles in Kayunga, and we have provided for, it's designed as a supplier park where people who want to make different components can come and make components.
For automotive? For
the automotive industry. So if you want to make brake pads, land is available for you to go and make brake pads. If you want to make filters, if you want to make shock absorbers, if you want to make windscreens or all the glass that goes on a vehicle, land has been provided for you to make that product and feed it into the industry. And not just feed it into automotive
As a Ugandan
sector.
Or somebody may fly from China with these ideas and he takes up the opportunity.
You know, for us, the most important thing about this is the ability for you to build innovative capabilities for Ugandans, but also create jobs for the Ugandans. So the goal is to attract domestic manufacturers, but if there's an international manufacturer who wants to set up at the park, that's also open, because for some of the components that may be developed, like lithium-ion batteries, you would need someone who is advanced in terms of that technology to come and set up, but the goal would be how many Ugandans are you employing? And also, where are you sourcing some of your raw materials? Are you getting them from Uganda, or are you still getting them from China? So those are some of the things that we are developing in line with that to ensure that we increase the value addition.
Thank you so much, Thatcher. At that point is where I'll take it to Brenda. There are so many people that have come up with items. Recently, we had the story of a young man who innovated a bomb, and he was asking people to go away from the village so that he could try it. You get? We have such brains. There is a young man I saw that had come up with a smartphone using battery cells that we used to put in radios. There is a young man who was trying to come up with a pen, a lot of things. You have seen the planes in Kololo today and all that. What plan is there within the Ministry of Technology to embrace all these people so that we don't lose them and we help them to have fruits from what they try to do?
Thank you very much. Yes, the ministry or STIOP is not working in a vacuum. There's an ecosystem where we belong. So one of the, if we are to say, okay, the first 100 days of the new minister, these are some of the things we actually shall be able to talk about, where we are identifying players in the arena of science, technology, and innovation, which began by actually identifying the 6 prioritized industrial value chain, then moving out to see who contributes to this ecosystem, and then how can we place the different players at their levels in the right place where they can actually get supported. First, even before I take you there, just the ministry level, at the national planning level, what we call the Program Implementation Action Plan. We have the goal bearer that we call maybe the lead ministry, and then there are program working groups in there. So right at the national level, that is happening. So science, technology, and innovation as a ministry also has its place, and it has program working groups that could be agencies, MDAs, that could be other ministries. So in this ecosystem, that's where we are actually identifying. And then additionally, in the proposed structure that we are hopeful will be approved very soon for the new ministry, STIOP, Science, Technology, and Innovation, Office of the President, we have worked out what we call that one-stop center, where we are having everyone coming in. You come with your idea, you come with the knowledge you have. Some people will be like, I really don't want to get into those things of prototypes, but this is my idea. Take it up from here. Where can I take it? And we are actually planning a desk like that, where you will go and you will be handled. What are you coming with? Where along these prioritized industrial value chains do you fall? So it is actually becoming a home for science, where everyone will be catered for. So as my colleagues here we are talking through, indeed what we need to harness all the capacities that we have. I'll still skew you to the Science Week, where we've had nominations coming through from the whole country, okay, for most of a number of districts. And you're seeing people coming in with different things, and different innovations, and actually when you interview them, when you talk with them, they tell you, I've long wanted to. And then as we build these synergies, because that is actually our theme this year, the future of STI in Uganda, breaking the silos, building synergies for a skilled workforce, for national economic transformation. Let me talk about just one case, a P4 dropout. And he's now in Kira Motors, working with them through a time that they will deem fit. But they tell you 6 months. He's intelligent, he's able to work through. I've never worked with a computer, that gentleman, but he's able now to design, to work also. They are able to tell you. So, blessing the people. Actually, our winners are going to be, and the runners-up for the National Science Week, those that are vying for the awards that will actually be given on the 10th by His Excellency, are going to be placed somewhere in the ecosystem to take care. We've had partners, we've got partners that will be taking care of them. But back to the ministry, that one-stop center where people will come with their ideas, a home for science, taking science to another level, placing them at the right point in the ecosystem, and just watch the space.
Okay, thank you so much, Brenda. Tell us about the day 10th. What should we expect? First of all, briefly about the activities that run up to the 10th and what we should expect on the 10th.
Okay.
Who is invited, who should not dare cross Kololo on that day.
Okay, thank you so much. The National Science Week. For the technical programming, it ran from the 2nd of November to the 10th of November. However, we saw and deemed it fit to actually recognize our scientists, our innovators, and really celebrate them, the unsung heroes, many times. So we started way back, right from 15th October to 24th October when we opened up nominations. The public was able to nominate people they thought still along the other 6 industrial value chains. And we got enormous. In a period of less than 2 weeks, we had 165 innovations coming through. That closed, we went to the pitching, we had it last Monday, and beautiful panels of judges, experts taking, supporting these people, of course, through the questions, through my colleague here was actually among, yes, and here we are. And then, so we've gone through that. Yesterday was 7th, the voting. The other day was 7th, the voting ended, because after the pitching, we got the best 3 above 18 years, the best 3 under 18. And I want to tell you, all our under 18s, we are actually girls. Okay. So we congratulate them, and we congratulate the country, we congratulate the people that were able to make it through the different stages. Just by you submitting your nomination, and going ahead to pitch, and going ahead to be among the top 3. Phenomenal, really. So, at the stage we are, today we had, 8th, yesterday, Monday, we had, is it midnight?
Not
yes.
yet, some minutes.
Today we had an exhibition launched at the Kololo, and we are still having this. It's the promise we made, that if you're among the top 3, you actually are able to come in and exhibit at Kololo, and those are the innovations. And then finally, we actually want to tell the public that the grounds are open. We opened them today for you. We took most of the weekend preparing, setting up for you to come and actually see what we are doing as a country. So today, we officially launched the exhibition, the National Science Week exhibition. And then tomorrow, we are still open. The general public, you're actually welcome. And then come the 10th. After this whole time, we are going to, 1, have His Excellency preside over the World Science Day now. All these activities have culminated into now finally the World Science Day. So 1, we shall still be having the exhibitions. We've exhibited in cities. You've been able to see huge indeed. And then get to, right there, yes, get to awarding these innovators that have gone through a rigorous process of pitching, of asking for votes from the public. And then we shall have launching of literature by His Excellency from our very own Ugandans, and then we shall actually call it a time. So we congratulate everyone. We welcome everyone. On the 10th, on Wednesday, we shall not be able to have everyone. because of the restriction. Even now at Kololo, we are adhering really to the COVID-19 guidelines. But now, also for Wednesday, what we have decided to do is get time on air to ensure everyone. We shall cover live and you'll be able to. But now for tomorrow, you actually have a chance to come on ground and see what is happening. So you're welcome as we celebrate our scientists, as we take the agenda of science to another level, as we join the rest of the world to actually get products on the market, have the science right, get products on the market, and work around import substitution. So that is what I can say. We thank the public for participating very, very ably and very strongly, supporting our scientists.
Thank you so much, Miss Brenda Nakaziwe, the chairperson of the organizing committee of the Science Week. We wish you all the best, and I'm sure we're going to be part of the whole activities to the end. Thank you so much, Dr. Mwikilize Cosmas, a lecturer at Makerere University and also Director Innovex. And also thank you so much, Madam Nachimuli Thatcher, the Product Design Manager, Kira Motors. To you watching, we thank you so much as well for being part of the show from wherever you are. My name is Michael Jordan Lukomwa. With the whole team, wish you the best of the night. Enjoy the next program. Bye-bye. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Everyone is talking about MTN shares. I am Jenny Kafulua Shares, and I am here to show you how you can get them. First, you need a Securities Central Depository account or SCD account in